So I compare solar to like a bicycle helmet, and people are always like, what? But if you think about it, when people first started getting wearing bicycle helmets, it was weird, right? Yeah. We didn't grow up with bicycle helmets. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah. We never had bicycle helmets on. Mm-hmm. And now everybody wears a bicycle helmet. Right. And solar is coming that way.
Welcome, friends. Adrian Sinclair over here with Apodcast with interesting people. And Corona is happening right now, and we're looking outside the windows, and we're seeing the differences and the difference that a lot of people not traveling on the roads are making to our environment. And so I was thinking to myself, what else is happening that is impacting our environment? What else can we do? The old conversation about what else can we do to help Mother Earth, and also just to kind of, get to the next level of not polluting our planet. And so I wanted to talk to a subject matter expert who's in the studio over here with me today, and we'll be chatting about solar, and we're going to be talking about environment, and I will pick her brain to find out what is happening in that space, and what can we, what are some of the misperceptions, and what can we do more as people to kind of get into that space of getting solar, getting in, more of the energy independence, and maybe addressing some of the misconceptions and myths that are happening out there. So stay tuned, and we're going to be talking about solar today. Melissa, welcome to a podcast with interesting people. Thank you for being here on the show. We are here in Draper, and in my little opening statement, I talked about how I see the difference in the environment, looking from the mountain down into the valley, and seeing how much of a difference fewer cars on the road make, visually seeing that the smog, this inversion as they call it over here, is gone. And I was thinking about like how this whole Corona and COVID has changed how we're looking at our environment and how we work and all these different things. And you are in solar, and we'll be talking about solar. I want to hear your perspective about what is happening in that space, what people can do more, and what are some of the misperceptions about solar, and why should people get into solar, beyond just the argument of, hey, I'm going to pay less a month, and I'm going to be a little bit greener. There's probably a lot of other topics that we can talk about to kind of educate and help people understand what's happening, so they kind of get that perspective. So again, thank you for being on the show, and tell us a little bit more about you. How did you get into solar? And then we'll take off from there, and we'll talk about solar and what's happening in that space.
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me here. It's beautiful out there. And I did enjoy that sunset so much last night. And it's great. I love it here. It's so wonderful. So I was in the liquor business. And in 2016, I just had this moment, and I was like, I want to leave a bigger impact. I want to leave a legacy. I want to do something other than just get people drunk,
Right.
And then I thought, well, I'm going to be a solar expert. I'm going to get into solar. I love the environment. I'm going to do solar, and
right.
I had no idea when I started down that journey that I would learn so much. And it was almost disheartening for me to learn how utility companies overcharge people. We think about, we just pay our utility bill because we have no option.
Right.
And I had no idea that there were options out there, not only greener options with solar, but that there's ways to not have to pay for them to, you think about coal, nuclear power, and then they have to transfer the energy for so far on all of these lines, and they're losing 30% of the energy. So it's like, wait, the sun is out there. Why wouldn't we just use the sun,
right,
bank a little utility plant on our roof, we're going to call that solar, and we're going to create our own clean energy right on our house.
Right.
And I love that I'm into this field now, because I went from being my friends used to call me a cork dork because I was so into wine. Now I'm a solar geek. I'm just oh, look at those panels, in your neighborhood here.
Yeah.
There was a lot of great panels up there, and I'm like, those people are energy independent. Look at them.
Yeah. It's amazing how, solar's been around, right? And in the past, it was just well, what are some of the barriers that people see getting a solar on your rooftop, right? So people like, well, it's too expensive, or a lot of different reasons. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening in solar right now. I know there's government incentives that are still going on. Why should anybody invest in putting up solar on our roofs?
So I think the biggest kind of block that people have in their head is they think it's too expensive. I'm going to wait for the price to come down.
Right.
Like everything, we just kind of want to wait for that price to come down. But right now, there are so many incentives out there. The federal tax credit right now is 26%. Last year, it was 30%. It's going to keep going down, and then it's just going to be gone.
Right.
And what's going to happen is that the more states that start to push solar on people, so for example, California, all new homes have to be built with solar.
Really?
Yeah. And if you look at the size of California and a lot of the policies that come out of California, generally other states start to follow. So as they start to force people to say, hey, you need to have clean energy,
right.
If you're going to build this way, don't build the old way. Build the cleaner, better way.
Right. So
as they do that, why would the government then incentivize you to go solar? Right. So that federal tax credit, it's like, you better go now or never, so don't wait for the price to go down, because it will not come down 26%.
Right.
And the other thing is that people don't realize that you can go solar without putting any money down. So you can get these loans, like we do loans that are 2.99%, and they're not having to put money any down. And in essence, a lot of times we can get their solar payments to be less than what they're currently paying. And they can lock that energy rate in. Yeah,
the argument for solar is that A, you're going to be greener, B, you're going to pay less in bills, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's also, I think, what really appeals to me is sort of like the resilience in energy distribution. And we talked about that a little bit offline, mm-hmm. where we're talking about like there is a lot of loss in transferring energy to long distance. So that's one of those things that I was totally ignorant about, because you think, hey, there's just energy companies, they just distribute that electricity out, but the further it goes, they have to have these transfer stations, these places that they convert from the high voltage to lower voltage and all that, so they can transfer it long distance. But still, you still lose a lot of energy pushing all that electricity through. Versus if we would have this distributed model of like everybody having their own solar panels on the roof, then A, the grid wouldn't be as susceptible to all these brownouts, and two, really, even that alone, the 30% that we would be saving in just not losing that energy by pushing it out, because mm-hmm. it just comes from your roof straight into your system,
right.
And then you can push it into the grid, so it builds more resilience. And that's one of the things that I think people are kind of like not even aware of, right? They just think that, solar is just going to kind of lower my bill, but you have to think about things systemically, right? Like you have to think
mm-hmm.
about that. If everyone or more people would have it, that affects the whole national grid, how we move energy, and even then and there we would have that increase in efficiency, because we wouldn't be losing that much energy, right. Sending energy further out. What are some of the other misperceptions that you hear out there when people think about, when you talk to people about solar?
Well, one thing along that same lines with how the energy moves along the lines, a lot of people don't understand is that the utility company is charging you for that. One of the big things that I do is I really help educate the homeowner of how to read your bill. And that sounds funny, but there's so many charges in there that most people just choose not to look at it. And a lot of utility companies will call, if you look at it, it's like called a fuel charge or a distribution charge. So they're charging you for how much it takes them to get it from their coal plant or their nuclear plant and move it to your house. So they're charging you that. So that would basically be like, let's say you're used to buying Amazon Prime, okay? So you're getting your shoes, whatever your goods from Amazon Prime. You're used to free shipping. And then one day you bought that same product and they just decided to charge you $30.
Right, just for shipping.
Because to ship it to you.
Right.
And that's what the utility companies do. But we don't really think about that because, again, we're not reading all those little fine lines in there. But it's crazy to me that not only are they losing this energy as it's traveling along the line, but then they're charging the homeowner for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way I understand. I mean, that's part of their business. They gotta recover that somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And other than making the lines out of like silver metal, something that's even more conductive and it's not losing as much energy, which is obviously it's not going to happen. That is one aspect that people are probably not familiar with, that this is happening. And you look at your bill and it's like, oh, what does this charge? What does this charge? And even if you use zero electricity, you're still going to pay every month this fixed price that they charge you. In terms of solar panel technology, what have you seen in terms of any changes, or because that's another thing that people are kind of waiting for, newer and better technology, right? And you can pretty much wait till the end of the existence with that as well, right? Because like it will constantly improve a little bit. But there's, what have you seen in this space in terms of like technology getting better? Like, does it matter? Do you think like next year is going to be that much better that you should wait or not? Or like what kind of trends have you seen out there?
So right now the technology is so solid for solar. Like the panels are so efficient, and not only that, like I always say they look sexy now. They're, they used to be like blue with like the white or silver crisscrosses on them, and they like kind of sit up from the roof. Now we use different panels that they're black on black. They lay super flush to the roof. Like when I was walking around your neighborhood this morning, I was like, that is a sexy solar panel.
Yeah, it
Look at that.
It blends in.
Yeah, and it just sits nice and flush. So the technology is there. I have people all the time like, should I wait? And I'm like, why would you wait? There's a federal tax credit of 26%.
Right.
Your energy cost with your current utility company is going to go up and up. And the technology is already there to produce the energy. And it's got a great look to it. Why wait?
Right. In terms of misperceptions that people have about solar, what else do you see as some of these kind of showstoppers for them to pull the trigger to convert or to bring in solar panels on people's houses? Is there anything else that they're like, it's great, yes, I want to be more green, yes, definitely lowering bills. What are some of the other obstacles that people kind of see before they commit to like, hey, I'm going to invest into solar panels?
Well, honestly, the first one is most people just think it's too good to be true. That's it. I mean, I show them the numbers, and I call them energy savings reports.
Right.
So I always tell people solar, it's a numbers game, because we don't know how much energy your family uses. We don't know how much energy your roof can produce. So we're going to run some numbers and see. And it's either going to work, it's going to make sense, or it's not. And usually when I show people the numbers, and if it's going to work for them, it's just too good to be true.
Right.
They're like, wait a minute. You mean right now I am paying 20 cents a kilowatt, and you're telling me I can actually lock in this rate at 12 cents and have energy independence, and the government's going to give me a 26% federal tax credit?
Right.
And I don't have to like have any money right out of pocket, and it's only 2.99% interest? This must be a scam.
Right.
Like, and it's so sad to me that if something looks so great that people instantly, they're thinking it's too good to be true.
Right.
It's just, that's a weird concept to me, and I run into it a lot.
Yeah, I think in part is because, people always kind of heard like, oh, it's still expensive, it's still expensive, it's still expensive. But I think the key is to kind of do the math that you guys do to kind of figure out like what is your footprint in terms of energy consumption, and what is that point in which it makes sense or it doesn't make sense to do solar. And right now, what is it in terms of like what is sort of the threshold that makes sense for solar panel in terms of like price per kilowatt?
We really think about if you are paying 12 cents or more a kilowatt, there's going to be that ROI, and it's going to make sense, And I always ask people.
So pretty much everybody in California, should have a solar panel. What do they pay? Like 30 cents, 40 cents?
Yeah,
now,
32 cents, 35 cents.
Wow.
And then you have Florida's great, Texas is, I always compare it to people like, what if 20 years ago you could have locked in your price of gas?
Right.
Or even more recently with COVID-19, what was it, like April? The gas prices, like in my area, dropped like to $1.85, and I thought, what if you could lock that price of gasoline in right now? Because we already know now the gas went back up, and that's really what it is it's about locking it in, so that you don't have to worry that as the outdated grid, because it's definitely outdated.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, because you kind of highlighted something for me that I didn't even consider with the grid and how outdated some of the stuff is. Like, I mean, even before COVID, even before all of this, where people like stayed home more, right? And they were like, East Coast had, blackouts and brownouts. West Coast had the same thing. Like when there's, especially like when it's much warmer out there and everybody's cranking their AC, and suddenly there's just not enough power in the grid, and you have this cascading failure where like one region is trying to support another region, and then just that fails, and then like a domino effect, it just kind of goes down. So that's yet another reason to kind of have solar panels on your roof and kind of contribute to the grid and be somewhat if not totally energy independent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand how outdated the grid is. Okay, so the grid was created back when people had one TV, one smaller refrigerator. Now people have 2 or 3 refrigerators,
right?
TVs, iPads, computers, tons of cell phones, AC.
Lots of AC.
AC, lots of AC. And then you think about how many people are home right now and how much energy they're using. Well, the grid wasn't meant for that. So utility companies are constantly having to update the grid to meet the new energy needs. So who pays for that? The homeowner pays for it.
Right. And that rolls right into your bill.
Yes.
And they don't mind just cranking it up for you to for you to pay more, and that's kind of that. The panels on the roof and the technology that's been kind of changing right now, where you said like they're like more aesthetically pleasing, they're matching. I mean, Tesla is getting into that space as well, right? They're going to be making like shingles that look like panels that look like shingles. So it's just going to kind of continue on. But it's a good analogy that you did. Like, hey, you're locking in the price right now in with this energy, because these panels will just continue to produce at that cost for you, and regardless of what the energy company is gonna do in terms of hiking up the price, you're gonna still have that flat energy cost from these panels once you install them, right?
Yeah, and you're never subject to what the energy company is going to do. So let's take a look at PG&E, Northern California. They had those big campfires.
Right.
They were held. They are being held accountable for 84 counts of manslaughter.
Right.
So who's going to pay that?
Aren't they bankrupt right now?
And they filed for bankruptcy, you know. But who's paying for all that? The people that are up in Northern California.
Right. And that's you just reminded me of that's another argument for owning these panels, and because one of the reasons why they had these forest fires and everything was because they weren't maintaining them, allegedly, the grid, their systems, their distribution network, and that was one of the causes of the fire that started the forest fires over there, and everything kind of went down. And again, it's if more of our society would have solar panels, then there wouldn't be as much of a impact on the grid, and maybe it wouldn't be overloaded. It wouldn't, again, we're talking about this distributed effort of kind of collecting energy and not having these single points of failure in the grid where like one region, and that's what happened in the past on East Coast, where one region needed to get more electricity and basically sucked more electricity out of another region in the grid, and that went down. So this went down, and this cascading failure just kind of propagated through the system. Right.
And then on top of that, if you look at what happened with PG&E, I can only imagine that all these other utility companies out there right now are thinking, oh my gosh, what if the winds come up here? Is our grid outdated? What do we need to do to protect our utility plant from having 84 counts of manslaughter, and having to shut down the grid constantly because it's not safe to operate during a windstorm? So as they're doing that, again, they're making the updates to the grid. Who pays for it? The homeowner pays for it.
Right. So those are all the pros for the for the solar panels, right? We want to be more green. We want to have that energy independence. We are affecting the environment by getting these, not only that you are consuming less, but also these plants that are producing everything and losing energy by pushing it long distance, right? So it's increasing efficiency just by even that. So those are sort of the pros. And of course, you said the entry way to owning a system like that is much easier right now with a federal discount and all those incentives that are happening even on state level as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the cons? I mean, is there anything? I mean, this is such a sweet deal. Like, why isn't everybody owning a system? Why?
So I think the biggest con is it's not right for every house. So if your house has a bunch of shade, it's not right for it, and I'll have some homeowners like, oh, I'll just cut those trees down. And then I'm like, well, then you're going to have a lot more energy because now you got rid of the shade, and so it's not, or maybe your roof isn't facing the right direction, or maybe there's just, your family needs so much energy that it's called an offset. So basically we're showing how much energy your roof can produce, but maybe your roof just can't produce enough energy. So there are definitely times that it's not good for every homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
I've had friends like in beautiful wooded areas, and they're like, we really want to be energy independent. We want to go solar. I'm like,
right.
But you live in the middle of a forest.
Right. Not a lot of sun,
The sun needs to hit your roof in order for it to produce the solar.
Right. And of course, there are better states than others in terms of how much sun are you getting every year. Cloud cover is affecting how much sun you're going to be able to collect, right? So, like, maybe Washington State has, with more cloudy weather, whatnot. Maybe.
It still works really well. If you look at it, Germany is the number one solar producing country in the world. And they're very equivalent to that good old weather in Seattle.
Wow, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, the panels are still, even with some clouds out, they're still producing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, that's good to know, because I was always kind of thinking like, you want to be like, well, we're in Utah. We're getting plenty of sun over here, right? Utah, Idaho, and in California for sure. You just, sun all the time. So that's good to know. Maybe it's in part, is it because these panels are just got much better in terms of efficiency that they still can collect enough? Or
they're great. I mean, they're super efficient. And like I said, they can operate even with some cloud coverage. They're still producing. We have lots of clients that love to watch. They kind of get obsessive with their little apps on their phone, watching
how much they're producing.
Yeah, watching what they're producing. And I found that it helps them actually use less energy, because now they're like really conscious of like how much energy their family's using.
Right.
Maybe we don't need the AC at like 64. Let's take it to 68. And they just start to watch and become... Part of becoming energy independent is to be energy conscious, to understand what is energy, how much are you using, what can you do, like, do we need to leave all the lights on all the time? Maybe we can shut them off. Are we using LED bulbs? Do we have a water heaters? Water heaters are huge. There's ways to get, like, do you have an energy efficient water heater? But when my clients start to monitor everything, they really get educated on it. It's great.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that goes along with the sort of like awareness of the of like, hey, now we're going green, right? So like now you're thinking like, well, okay, you're looking at this meter, like here's how I see how things are affecting what I'm producing as well, right? Because you have an app that's like, oh, lots of lights, oh look, it's coming down, like my energy efficiency. So that's cool to know. So it's like it is a shift in mindset, isn't it?
It is an
like,
absolute shift in mindset. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It is.
Yeah, because then you're just like, more, like right now, like you said, like when you ask people like, hey, have you looked at your energy bill? It's like a lot of times people are like, just like, no, it's a given. I just got to pay that thing. And
it's on auto pay. I don't want to look at it because I have to pay it.
Right.
And then I'm like, actually, there are other options. But our mindset is you move into a house,
right?
Sign up with the local utility company, pay it.
Right.
Or else you don't have electricity.
Yeah.
Why would you ever look anywhere else?
Yeah, that's it.
But if we shift that mindset to being like, actually, you do have an option.
What else is happening in solar? What else do you see out there in terms of maybe even a trend? You're dealing with a lot of people, and now with COVID, things are changing in terms of like how we interact with people, like social distancing and all of that happening, right? It's really affecting everything, and so it must be difficult to kind of make people aware about, solar and everything. And what you're doing in your company, you're doing some unique things. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about how you adapted to this whole COVID pandemic, quarantining, social distancing situation? So
I am very fortunate. I had set up my entire company in a perfect, like, almost scenario for COVID-19. So we sell...
How so?
I know that sounds weird, but we sell online. We sell solar online.
How can you sell solar online? Don't you have to like talk to someone and being like, face to face and like, hey, here's a panel, here's a brochure, like, like how, is it online that you're doing it in like Zoom or something, or like what's happening there?
So I started with my mindset of it was, I don't ever want somebody coming into my home to sell me anything. I don't even want to go, when I go to a car lot, I don't want to be in the car with a car salesperson.
Right.
I want to do my research. I just want to, what are my car payments going to be, or how much is my cash on the car? Like, tell me the numbers.
Right.
Again, it's a numbers game. And then I thought, well, if I go get a mortgage, I do that online. Like, the mortgage person doesn't come to my house and sit at the kitchen table with me.
Right.
So I thought, well, why wouldn't solar be the same thing? Why can't I just talk to the homeowner, figure out their energy needs, be that true consultant? And I work for the homeowner. I find the very best solar installers in their area. And because I work so closely with the installers, I am able to help drive down the cost for the customer. Because now the solar company's not paying somebody to go door knock or be in a Home Depot.
Right.
I come to them with the design and we bring the cost down. And so when COVID-19 happened, all of a sudden people were like, oh, I'm going to do this online. And like the online thing, it seems so easy now. So like you mentioned Zoom, that's how we sell.
Right.
So we do our whole consultation is Zoom. So it's like this, we can still hang out, but we're like more of that like Brady Bunch style.
Right, yeah. And now like everybody's boxes, so used to, everyone's so used to because of COVID and the social distancing. Everyone is like used to doing stuff on Zoom or all these other teleconferencing softwares where you can just talk to someone remote and
you think about it like on Instagram. It used to be take a picture of you and your friends out for dinner or something or having a cocktail, and now you see people like during that whole COVID-19 shutdown time, everybody's showing Instagram pictures of themselves with all their friends,
right,
having a happy hour via Zoom.
Exactly.
So it's really opened it up for us to be able to really have that complete online experience. We saw record growth during COVID-19. Our sales were up 120%. I think, people were ready to have a little energy independence.
Right.
They were ready to do some research and really try to, they had time.
Right.
To take time. They had time to figure out, am I getting ripped off from my utility company?
Right. And, another thing I think that kind of falls into this is that if this is going to persist, and I certainly hope that a lot of companies realizing that, hey, maybe we don't need as much commercial real estate and having people in the office space and basically just they can do it from their homes. A lot of remote teleworking is happening right now. Stuff that wasn't considered before now suddenly is possible, right? Companies like, hey, you can do this remotely. We've been working for the past 2-3 months from home, and efficiency, you're still producing, right? That's kind of shifting the cost of that energy that was in the office of cooling it and lighting it and everything, right? Now it's kind of like getting on your bill, right? Because now you're sitting at home.
Yes.
So that's going to kind of shift that into coming.
Think about what people's electric bills are going to be like after this, because now they've all been home.
Right.
We're now running the AC all day, all night, versus before they were at the office.
Exactly.
It's going to be even more important to really understand how much money they're spending.
Right. Yeah. What do you see in terms of the future in solar and the trends? Like, what else can be done? What else people need to know to kind of continue with this motion of getting more solars on solar panels on people's houses? And then just kind of some wild things that you might see over there that, what do you foresee in a year or 2 or 5? What do you think is going to happen?
So I compare solar to like a bicycle helmet. And people are always like, what? But if you think about it, when people first started getting wearing bicycle helmets, it was weird, right? Yeah. We didn't grow up with bicycle helmets. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah. We never had bicycle helmets on. Mm-hmm. And now everybody wears a bicycle helmet. Right. And solar is coming that way. I think about it like even walking your neighborhood this morning, how many houses I started to see with solar.
Right.
And I feel that solar is going to become the new norm. And the more that people are buying solar, then the more the prices will keep dropping for people, and it's starting to really add value to the home. So if you think about it, like if you have a home A has no solar, home B has solar. You're going out and you're looking for houses. So home A, you're like, oh, okay, what's your average? People always want to look up what's your average electric bill, right? Okay, it's $300. Well, we know that rate increases happen all the time. So you're like, okay, so with my family, then I need to budget $300. Maybe it's going to be 20% rate hike. It's going to keep going up.
Right.
Now, the other home has solar. And you're like, tell me about your electric bill. And they're like, we have solar.
Right.
There is no electric bill. We pay about $15 a month for the interconnection fees, but other than that, we don't pay for that.
Right.
So what do you think, which home would you rather have? The one with the electric bill and the rising cost, or the other one?
Right.
So I think that for home buyers, and we're already seeing it, that it has about a national average of about 21%, that it raises the value of the home.
21%.
Yeah, because if you think about it, let's say you do a kitchen remodel because you think it's going to increase the value of your home.
Right.
I might come in and look at it, and I might have a completely different idea of what my kitchen wants to look like, even though you just spent all this money on the kitchen because you just thought it was going to be the coolest kitchen. But I'm like, actually, Adrian, I like my kind of kitchen.
Right.
But one thing we all have in common
is definitely energy, right?
Is energy. Yeah. I'm like, who doesn't? Like, wouldn't you not want to have an energy
bill? You still
bill?
need energy. You still need electricity in your home, right?
That's one consistent thing that we know we can all agree on, is that we don't want to pay a big utility bill.
So do you think that solar and solar panels on new houses or existing houses, do you think that's going to become like an expected, almost like an appliance when you buy a house? Like, you expect that there's going to be a stove, you expect that there's going to be a microwave, and hopefully a dishwasher, right? Appliances that you just expect to be there. Do you think that's what's going to happen in the future?
Absolutely. And like I said with California, every new home has to have solar. So as like every new home being built has to have solar, and all these people keep transitioning to solar, why would you want to go buy a house that didn't have solar?
Right.
That would be like going and buying, like you said, with appliance. Mm-hmm. Then you're like, oh, wait, the dishwasher doesn't come with it, the washer and dryer, the refrigerator.
Right.
It's going to become the new norm.
It's the new norm. Wow. What else do you think is going to happen in the future for solar? I mean, it sounds like it's a matter of just spreading the awareness of it. And it's not only, because I think typically when people are talking about solar, they think of like, oh, it's going to cut my cost of electricity. But, there's also the important factors are the ones that we talked about, how this affects everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. Because that cost of producing the pollution that comes along with it, right? All these additional things. So those are kind of the things that are sort of like invisible to people on the surface, unless they kind of hear, like in this podcast, when we talk to a subject matter expert, someone who knows more about what's happening behind the scenes. But what else? Is there anything else that you think is going to happen in the future for solar?
I think that we're going to start to see utility companies switching over to solar. We already are. Duke Energy just got approved, and they're building massive solar fields because they had a nuclear power plant that failed. They had to increase the utility bills by 21% for 4 years. Well, now they're building solar fields. Right. Other utility companies are going to start to build solar fields, which I love. That's awesome. It's great for the environment. But who's going to pay for those?
Right.
You. The homeowner.
It's going to be just rolled into your bill.
Yep. So it's basically, do you want to wait for the utility companies to make solar fields and charge you, or do you want to get energy independence right now, put your own solar plant on your roof, so when they do that, you're like, actually, you can't raise my rates because I already have solar.
Right. That's interesting. Maybe that's going to be kind of like one of those things that, as you set up a new account, they're like, do you have solar? And if you do, then obviously they can't charge you those things.
Well, they can't. I mean, you're already locked in your rate. You already produce your own power. You don't need them anymore.
Right.
You're locked in. And the other thing is, right now there's net metering. So basically, you produce energy from your roof. Now the utility company buys that from you at wholesale, at cost. Then they sell it to your neighbor at retail. That's going to eventually go away too. The utility companies, when they go build their own solar fields, they're not going to have to be buying energy from your solar because they went and built their own solar.
Right.
So right now they are doing net metering, but that is eventually going to go away too. So that you then you've missed that window of opportunity to truly be your own energy plant and sell to the utility company, at that point, then you're just buying the utility company's solar.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see how things will shift when more and more people will have solar, and how that relationship with the plants producing electricity with the energy companies will continue to develop. Of course, I think our energy needs will continue to grow. Maybe they'll be offset by some new technologies, like you said. You mentioned things like LED lighting, which pretty much everybody uses right now. Everyone is going away from incandescent lighting, so there's going to be it's going to be net zero effect where at some point. Do you think that at some point we're not going to need any energy companies at all? Do you think it's possible to get to the point that we're going to be like, all right, we were like fully self-sufficient from our rooftops, or do you think, and like farms of solar panels, or do you think that's just a pipe dream?
So my big vision and dream is to build sustainable net zero whole communities. And why do we even have to have lines? Couldn't we have a community where we have solar panels on them? And if I produce extra energy, you're my neighbor, you can use that extra energy. And then why are we even paying somebody? Like, let's just be energy independent. And then if I overproduce, you have it. If you overproduce, you give it back to me.
Right.
And then there will be technology that it doesn't have to go on a line.
Right.
It will figure out how to go from house to house.
Right.
Like almost like it's your own microgrid community.
Right.
Like let's have the communities farming for themselves, they're creating their own energy, and it's really bringing the community back together.
I like what you said, because of the key word to me is distributed, right? Distributed. We have better food resilience when we have local farmers, right? We're not as affected by kind of national, big plants being infected by something, and then suddenly there's an impact that's to the whole country. We have all sorts of other distributed systems. Now cryptocurrency is doing a lot of distributed stuff, and we see that it's one of the ways to go to have a distributed system in order to be more resilient, and energy would be one of them as well. If there's grid outage, you wouldn't be, if you have this, you wouldn't be as susceptible to that, because you would have your own energy, and we, again, like you said,
it would be disrupting and decentralizing it.
Right. Switching topics to, how is it to be an owner of a solar system, and what changes for you? What do you have to be? What is the experience like for someone who owns a solar panels or a solar system in their home? Like, describe that to those who obviously are like, hey, I've heard of solar, but like, what is it like? What do I do? What do I need to change? Like, do I need to change anything in my day-to-day sort of behavior with using energy, or is it like, what is it like?
My homeowners get geeky about it. Like, you don't have to do anything. I mean, the panels go up there, and like, there's no maintenance to them.
Right.
It rains and washes them off. I kind of laugh when I see these companies out there that they'll like clean the panels and stuff, and it's like, that's what the rain does.
Right.
It's all good. If you don't have rain, maybe you just spray them off with a garden hose, but for the most part, they just sit up there. They're not like a mechanical moving part. It's not like your AC unit or your furnace. It's not moving. It's not doing things. It's just sitting up there,
right,
doing its thing.
Is there any maintenance at all, or do you?
Nope. And our panels are 30. Everything's 30 years.
Okay.
30-year warranty.
Okay.
On everything, the inverter, everything.
Right.
Labor, anything that's it's all included.
Right.
So it's really just put it up there and let it do its thing.
Its job.
And then if you want to get geeky, get the app, watch what you're producing.
Yeah, tell me more about the app. What is it telling you? Obviously, how much you're producing, but what else you get with the app?
There's a lot of different apps that people use out there, but really, like, it's mostly they're getting to see how much energy they're producing, right, and consuming.
Right.
The consuming one, it's just people get, some of the apps will even show you, like, if your microwave, how much it's using, or maybe your daughter's curling iron or something like that. Like I said, people can get really geeky with it, or you just leave it up there and be like, yep, I don't have an electric bill this month. Yep, no more electric bill.
Now with the onset of everyone having an app for everything, right? You can obviously, monitor everything, and then it's kind of like you see firsthand versus what's happening right now when you just pay utility. It's like set it and forget it, so it's paid for, but you don't know how much you're really, you're not looking at your bill really, like how many kilowatts am I using a month or what have you. So that's pretty cool. All right, well, is there anything else that you want to tell those who are watching this podcast and getting educated about solar and solar panels and solar energy? What else would you like to tell them, and to kind of close it out, and maybe steer them to your website? What is your website, and they can learn more about it, I guess, on your website. And just kind of shout out to everyone. let them know what else they need to know. Maybe
I think the biggest thing is, let's see if the numbers make sense.
Right.
That's what you got to do, because they're either going to make sense or not. So people can find me on Facebook, Melissa Dawson. I also have my website, Online Solar Experts, and you can book appointments with me. I love to just talk energy with people. I am I'm like a concierge of energy. Let's look at your household needs. Let's figure out if solar makes sense for you. We also have an amazing ambassador program that
What's that?
That is, if somebody refers somebody to go solar with me, we pay $1,000.
Wow.
So right now, with so many people laid off from work, we're really able to help people out, because if they've had a great experience with me, they like the numbers, everything works, then they can refer somebody to go solar, and I pay them $1,000 after the install is complete. So I have a lot of people making a lot of extra little cash just from being like, hey, have you ever thought about going solar? Oh, so if somebody wants to be an ambassador for us, we
so it's like an affiliate program.
Yep, we do all the training for it.
Right.
We teach you how do you talk to your friends, or how do you talk to somebody about solar, but then we do all of the consultation.
Right.
All that person has to do is just refer a homeowner that wants to learn if solar is right for them. And if that homeowner goes solar, then they get $1,000. So that's our ambassador program, and they get their own awesome little website, and it's huge. So yeah, if somebody wants to become an ambassador, if they want to learn about solar, join our team then.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show. I really wanted to bring someone who's a subject matter expert, who is in the industry, and someone who can talk to, others to kind of educate them and make them aware, and also go through pros and cons, right? It's like you said, it's not for everyone. It has to make sense financially. There's places in U.S. that are, the energy is so cheap that you are, it wouldn't pay for you. It wouldn't pay to do it. But then again, on the flip side, there's others that it clearly makes sense to jump right into it. And knowing those pros and cons, and how is it to actually get into this. To get solar, and what is it like to own a solar system in your home? Seems to be like very transparent to you once it's installed. It's just kind of like, it's really just sort of like behind the scenes working and doing its magic. So
it is. It's on your roof. Most people don't even actually pay attention to their roof.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. And for those of you who want to learn more about Melissa's company, onlinesolarexperts.com is the domain, so go and check it out over there. And if you are interested in more of these types of tech or these kinds of conversations that we're having, where we're bringing in subject matter experts and talking about technology, so we're talking about different types of products and services which will help you in your own day-to-day lives, then drop a comment, let us know, subscribe to the channel, and we're going to respond to the need out there, and bringing in more subject matter experts talking about all these different topics that affect you and your day-to-day life. And thank you for listening, and check us out on apodcast.com. That's our domain. Subscribe to our channels to get notifications about new podcasts which are coming out almost constantly. And thanks for listening. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. Please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.